Did you know C-3PO is over 100 years old? Well, in the Clone Wars, 3PO says he used to work for the chief negotiator in the Menacron system, and this would have happened before Anakin built him on Tatooine. This means Anakin did not build 3PO from scratch, but only rebuilt him. But there's more, because according to canon, C-3PO is actually 100 years old by the time of the original trilogy. While not as impressive as Yoda's 900 years, or Chewbacca's 200 years, this is still pretty crazy. But this is only number 20 of the craziest Clone Wars Season 3 facts, which I will be covering in this video, going from least to most mind-blowing. And my goal by the end of this video is to give you a new appreciation for Season 3, which is often criticized for being slow and full of filler episodes. Let's see how I do. Probably the biggest question I had about this season as a child was why the Jedi outfits randomly change in the middle of this season. Well, if you ever wondered this as well, today's your lucky day.
There is no such thing as luck.
You see, in lore, Coruscanti citizens began to criticize the Jedi for being too militarized, and so the Jedi made the change back to Jedi robes, which is another good example of the prequel era Jedi caring too much about politics. Also, behind the scenes, Dave Filoni wanted the outfits and planets of the show to slowly become more bleak and less colorful to reflect the darker nature of the progressing war as we went from episode 2 to episode 3. By the end of this season, all the Jedi were back to wearing their typical Jedi robes, minus the arm gauntlets. But did you know this isn't the first time we saw the Citadel in the Clone Wars? Because on Kamino in season 3, episode 1, Clone Cadets, we see the Citadel Training course, which is actually based off of this exact separatist prison on Lola Seiyu. For some reason, a lot of people never notice this. And make sure to keep watching because I will later reveal the special connection the Citadel arc has to Kobe Bryant himself. Rest in peace. One character that's pretty controversial from the Clone Wars is Count Dooku. Many find him to be one-dimensional and like a mustache-twirling villain, which is far from the character he is in Legends. However, he did have some pretty cool episodes in the Clone Wars, like this one where he trains Savage Opress. It's hard to see at first, but this shot of Dooku holding these two lightsabers around Savage Opress's neck perfectly mirrors this shot of Anakin after disarming Dooku in Revenge of the Sith. The foreshadowing is strong with this one. However, there is one Star Wars character who has become infamous for having a funny name, Jedi Master Imma Gun, because, you know, I'm gonna die.
How embarrassing. How embarrassing.
But there are actually multiple funny Star Wars character names. For example, in episode 2, the guy who offers Obi-Wan death sticks is Elan Sleaze Bagano. And there's also Jedi Master. You know, the Blue Bounty Hunter is actually a family-friendly channel, so I don't think I'll be saying this last guy's name. But if you know, you know.
Master.
But did you know the clone Barracks in the episode Clone Cadets were originally going to be an Attack of the Clones? Allow me to explain. For episode 2, a lot of concept art was created for Kamino, much of which used a white color palette with black accents to foreshadow the stormtroopers which the clone army would be turned into. The clone barracks were a design that didn't fit into this movie, but were finally used in the Clone Wars Season 3. But this isn't even the most shocking fact about Season 3. And make sure to stick around to the end of this video to hear about the Mortis deleted scenes with Darth Revan and Darth Bane. But also featured on Kamino was the only time Ventress and Grievous ever worked together throughout the show. Because despite Grievous fighting Ventress on Dathomir in Season 4, which we'll talk about more in the next video, the two never actually worked together, except during the Battle of Kamino.
There's nothing you have that I could want.
This is pretty crazy considering how many times both Grievous and Ventress are featured throughout the series. Another character Grievous never sees is Anakin, who literally fights Ventress in the next scene, meaning he is feet away from Grievous, but despite this, Dave Filoni made sure to have these characters never meet in the show. But the reason behind this ties back to Revenge of the Sith. In this movie, Anakin tells Grievous,
General Grievous, you're shorter than I expected.
And to keep continuity, the showrunners made sure Skywalker and Grievous never meet in the show. Season 3 of The Clone Wars really did a great job expanding the world building of Star Wars. I mean, think about it. We got to see how the clone troopers were trained on Kamino, where Darth Maul comes from, and that he survived his quote-unquote death, and even the nature of the Force itself. Now, the one aspect of Star Wars no one talks about is the color of different species' blood. However, not everyone has red blood. You may remember back to Season 2 when the Jedi found green blood on this transport ship, revealing that Cad Bane was disguised as a clone. And yes, I do in fact have green blood, I can confirm. But not only Duros, but also Rhodians have green blood. The reason I know this is because Greedo, who was in the Clone Wars, actually left green blood on an icon of the moon goddess from Papanoida, which Baron Papanoida and his son used to track the bounty hunter to Jabba's palace. But another familiar location that returns in Season 4 of the Clone Wars is Mandalore, which continues this art style known as Cubism, created by Picasso, with the food we see the Mandalorian students eating. And when Ahsoka is talking to Prime Minister Almec, he actually refers to her as Master Jedi, which is the formal title for any Jedi used by anyone who isn't part of the Order. We hear Palpatine refer to Mace Windu in Revenge of the Sith in this way.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
While many consider these Mandalore and Padmé episodes filler, they actually provided essential character development for Ahsoka and Padmé and explained the politics of the Republic and the Separatists. This on top of the legendary arcs like Domino Squad on Kamino, Savage Opress, Mortis, and the Citadel arc are all big reasons why Season 3 remains to this day my second favorite season across the entire show. But did you know this scene from the Citadel arc where Ahsoka kills OC Sobeck was almost completely different? Because originally, we would have seen Tarkin kill Sobeck himself by shooting him in the back with a blaster when he was turned around. This would have shown the difference between the morals of the Jedi and Tarkin even more. And another reason Season 3 is so good is because it is the first Clone Wars season that really started to go in a darker direction, kind of like Goblet of Fire for Harry Potter. And after editing this video, I just realized I never mentioned the Kobe Bryant reference, so actually on the Citadel, there's a tactical droid named K2B4, which in case you can't tell, those are the initials of Kobe, that being KB, and then 24 is his number on the Lakers basketball team. Also, the droid is yellow and purple, just like the Lakers. While I mentioned Savage Opress earlier, behind the scenes, he's more interesting than you may have thought. His armor is based off of Roman soldier armor. But while we never got to see this, the spear Savage uses during his mission to Deveron,
I'm one with the Force is with me.
the center of this spear actually shoots out a projectile. It would have been very cool to see this. And while I sadly don't have any Cad Bane facts for this video, during the Hunt for Zero episode, we see multiple new Hutts on Tatooine, like Marlow the Hutt, who may appear to have hair, but this is actually a small creature called a Shirelian Toop that was on top of his head. We also see Mama with multiple toops stacked on her head in the form of a top-knot hairdo. But along with the many political episodes in this season are the Niemodians, who have an interesting history. While the Niemodians supported the Sith by the time of the Clone Wars, this is far from their roots, as during the Old Republic, the Niemodians actually produced fleets for the Republic and helped them in their war efforts during the Sith Wars. Before these creatures evolved into their humanoid form, they started out as larvae that were forced to compete with each other over limited food to survive until the age of 7. Only the strongest Niemodians would go on to fulfill their greedy purposes in life. One senator that the Trade Federation hated was Padmé Amidala. Funny enough, the episode Pursuit of Peace finally reveals something about Padmé many fans have wondered for years. As you can see here, Padmé's hairdresses are actually pre-made with fake hair. So no, she doesn't take 3 hours to style this every time she goes out in public. And huge shout out to Star Wars Explained, who I basically got all of these facts from on this video about the Clone Wars Season 3. While he mentioned most of these, I wanted to expand this content by providing a thorough analysis of each in relation to the lore and significance of them. But he has already covered all 7 seasons with facts from them, so if you are not patient enough to wait for my videos on the remaining seasons, then you can watch his right now. And in case you can hear any background noise in this video, sorry about that, it is kind of looking like Camino outside at the moment. On Coruscant, when the Council reacts to the murdered Jedi on Deveron, Halsey, and Nox, we discover that the Jedi know Darth Maul by name. This most likely was uncovered from the Niemodians, who the Jedi most likely interrogated after the Battle of Naboo in 32 BBY. But welcome back to the self-improvement advice of this video. Today we're actually looking at Luke 10:41 through 42 in the Bible, and if that's not your kind of thing, then you can skip to this time right here. But for context, this is actually talking about when Jesus goes to his friends Mary and Martha, and he kind of, stays at their house for a little bit, and Martha is going around doing all of this work, trying to make meals as was proper at the time for all the guests, including Jesus, but then Mary is actually just sitting there and listening to Jesus, which goes against what, you were supposed to do in that situation. So, Martha starts to complain, and the response that Jesus gives to this is actually one that has confused many people. So it says right here, "But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her." So basically what's going on here is that Mary is actually listening to Jesus and his word. So all of us in our life are extremely busy, and there's all these responsibilities we have, all these things that we need to do to, survive essentially. But at the end of the day, what Jesus is saying here is that listening to the word of the Lord is the most essential thing, and that you should never put all these responsibilities and worldly things that the world says we have to do, all these things that we have to do, over listening to the word of God. So you know what that means. If you're in a hurry or you have work to do, I don't have time to read the Bible today, I don't have time to pray today, I don't have time to go to church this week. According to Jesus, you should always put those things over your work, which is, very interesting. A lot of people are going to hear that and be like, yeah, I can't do that. Well, if you think about it, that's the exact same way the rich man that Jesus told, if you want to become a true follower of me, you should give up all of your possessions. And then, they went home crying because they couldn't do it. It's the exact same thing. So it's very difficult, but that is in fact what Jesus says you should do. But while The Phantom Menace has Darth Maul, there is one thing it doesn't have that Revenge of the Sith does: George Lucas. Okay, yes, George directed or helped create all 6 of his Star Wars movies, but it wasn't until Revenge of the Sith that Lucas actually appeared in one as Baron Papanoida. In the Clone Wars episode Spear of Influence, Baron Papanoida makes an appearance, but also his daughters Chi Imanwi Papanoida and Chi Ikwe Papanoida are featured, who are based off of Katie and Amanda Lucas. However, while Katie Lucas was in Revenge of the Sith, Amanda's character in Baron Papanoida's son, Eon Papanoida, based off of Jet Lucas, are new characters created for this episode. But going back to Season 1 of the Clone Wars, have you ever wondered why King Katuunko agreed to meet with Master Yoda? Okay, let's be honest, probably not. But hear me out, what I'm about to tell you is actually pretty interesting, because the Season 3 episode supply lines where Jar Jar and Bail Organa go to Toydaria to get supplies for the people of Ryloth actually fills in the gap here. This episode is a direct prequel to Season 1, Episode 1, because King Katuunko's agreement to use Toydaria as a staging ground for supplies to Ryloth is what led to him setting up a meeting with Yoda. Katuunko Katuunko's life is pretty tragic when you think about it, because he always wanted to keep Toydaria neutral, and when he decided joining the Republic would be the best for his people, this ended up costing him his life at the hands of Savage Opress, who Dooku sent to capture Katuunko as revenge. While there's hours of deleted scenes from this show that I can cover in my deleted scene series, there is one that is so good it's worth mentioning today. That is, the scene of the Son contacting Darth Revan and Darth Bane on Mortis.
Where? It is unknown, but know this, the Chosen One is the key.
While this scene would have finally given us a canon appearance of Darth Revan, it was cut because George firmly believed that only the Jedi should be able to become Force Ghosts, because if the Sith could, that would go against what the light side and dark side mean. The dark side is all about holding on to life and immortality, material, worldly things, whereas the light side understands death as a natural part of life, becoming one with the Force after death. Let me know if I helped you to better appreciate the 3rd season of the Clone Wars, but if you watch my other Craziest Facts videos, you will find I'm actually a big advocate for the early Clone Wars seasons, which may or may not have to do with my nostalgia for them. I even created a playlist with the 20 craziest facts from each Clone Wars season, as well as the prequels, which you can watch now or save for later if you click this nifty little button right here. But my friend Palpatine says you should watch it right now.
Do it.